Welcome back to part 4 of the Absolute Reason Mentorship Program, with a focus on gender ideology. In this program, we look at ancient knowledge with a modern artistic touch. I am Joan, your freaky philosopher, and you are my absolute reason. In the first 3 parts, we made use of Abigail Schreier's lecture on her book Irreversible Damage as an indicator as to what is happening in the environment at the moment. This is relative to gender ideology or gender dysphoria. Abigail, in her book, also isolates and categorizes 3 different types of individuals who are mainly affected by the gender ideology currently found within the environment. I then proceeded to say that when one looks at the individual, the 3 categories, and then the environment surrounding gender ideology, that it would be critical for a parent to be able to have a proper discussion with their child in relation to gender ideology. In order for the individual to form a proper and healthy relationship with his environment, an individual needs to learn how to communicate properly. And this is something not taught in our schools, and I would even gauge to say it is not taught in tertiary education either. The tool of dialectic, or would I rather say the science of dialectic, is then briefly discussed at the end of part 3, in which you as a parent then learn how to better approach a conversation around gender ideology with your child. The approach is not one of force and control, where you push and pull towards your desired outcome. This is not the science of dialectic. The science of dialectic reveals truth gradually through a process of self-inquiry to the individual who pursues truth as his main goal. The science of dialectic is a beautiful foundation from which you and your child can together discover the true nature of reality with regards to the chaos of gender ideology and the confusion of gender dysphoria. It is almost like learning a new language together. In doing so, you create a level ground for parent and child to reach each other. It isn't a relationship based on force and control. It is not a relationship that will yield benefits to the individual who is attached to outcome. Dialectic offers a relationship with your child where both of you can, as equals, discover the true nature of reality through a process of self-inquiry. It is a tool that will not only assist you here and now, but it is also a tool that your child will forever carry in their back pocket as a way to guard against fake news, false information, or whatever other hocus pocus is the new trend out there on TikTok today. It is dialectic that offers you an opportunity to reach your child by learning a new language together through a process of discovery. The School of Philosophy in Melbourne, Australia, who issued the book of dialectic, also included some practical descriptions and associated daily practices. I'm not going to go into each and every one of these slides, but they are available here and you should go through them. These practices are critical in you developing the tool of dialectic. Now that we have the tool of dialectic in our back pocket, we can further pursue the true nature of reality in relation to gender ideology and gender dysphoria. This is where a moment should be taken. Now that we know or we have the tools on how to approach a proper conversation around the topic, it is necessary for us to at least pinpoint a starting aspect, a starting concept that will form the foundation from which we can then further pursue through the process of dialectic. We have all heard the term of we live in duality, in a dual nature. But who exactly knows what that means? And personally, I had to go do proper research within the Chandogya Upanishads in order to find a very simple structure of what it means when somebody tells you we live in a dual nature. And the Chandogya Upanishad points to the first counterparts created. And it states that first was energy, then matter. Energy and matter as the first counterparts of duality is a beautiful place from which you can start this conversation with your child. Why does this freaky philosopher point to the study of spirit and matter as the first counterparts created, as the starting point from which you can have a conversation with your child? Well, it's quite simple. Because before the individual can understand the world outside of the self, one needs to understand that which is closest to the self, which basically means you. You as a parent need to first understand the counterparts of spirit and matter. If you have a better understanding of this, you can then take the lead as the parent in the conversation of energy and matter when it comes to discussing gender dysphoria with your child. You have to understand the more subtle aspects of the individual, the threefold nature of the individual, before you can actually be empowered to assist and guide your child. So before we can get to your child, let us look at you, the individual, the parent, and the guide to the younger generation, and why exactly the study of energy and matter as the first counterparts is so relevant and so important in understanding gender ideology. Seeing that the topic of discussion demands a perspective on our body and how we relate to our body, I have decided to use physical fitness as the example from which we can further explore the importance of understanding that there are counterparts within the individual. First was energy, then matter. Knowing that energy came before matter is a critical observation in understanding how formless moves into form. We are taught to relate to our bodies as dead matter that only submits to force and control. This falsehood inevitably leads the individual to outsource the perceived control required for a healthy state. If we pause on these two sentences and relate it to going to the gym for physical well-being, we can see that it is spot on in relation to how we are conditioned to relate to our physical well-being. So we go to the gym and spend 4 or 5 hours a week there. If that doesn't work, we start abusing ourselves about just how big of a failure we are for not being able to even control our weight. And that's when we reach for the professionals to come and show us what exactly is needed for us to be able to understand our physical well-being better. It is when our personal efforts or professional help fail us that a few of us would go into the extreme mode of trying to force and control the desired outcome. And again, this is where the Newtonian approach of force and control forms an abusive relationship with your body vessel. Every time you look in the mirror, it is with critique, judgment, disapproval. This is a desire for outcome that changes the eye of the individual to look and view themselves in such a permanent state of critique. What we know of the external world is molded and formed by our mind, our thoughts, our ideas, our imaginations. So it is necessary for the individual to develop the I, EYE. It's how the individual conceives, imagines, and pictures that which governs his relationship with the environment. The individual has to explore and re-establish the relativities that support his perspective and so his relationship with the body. Energy and matter, as the foundation of all creation, is studied and explored to determine the relativities that support the I, EYE, of the individual. If you as a parent or a guardian can understand the energy, the spirit behind the gender dysphoria that your child is displaying, well then you are far better placed and positioned to actually be able to assist your child in a guided fashion to find and discover the true nature of this reality. It is now with a greater awareness of energy and matter as the first counterparts created within this dual nature that we can now further pursue the more subtle aspects of who we are as individuals. These aspects include things like psychology, but it's most certainly not isolated to psychology. In fact, it better explains how the psychological effect happens within the individual. What stirs behind that psychological effect is and will forever be the power of the will of the individual. This is why people like me have such sensitivities around free will. Because when you begin to study the subtle threefold nature of who you are, then you begin to understand how important your free will is in the actual expression of reality. You matter What you will matters. Thoughts are things. And understanding the threefold nature of the individual will considerably assist your child and you in future when it comes to just being able to get a better grasp on what is real and what is not real. What forms your everyday, and how is it that the subtle aspects of who you are brings formless into form. This includes your perspective on your gender. This includes your perspective of who you are as a male or a female within society. And in the next session, we are really going to delve deep into the, oh, are you ready for the word, occult aspects of who we are as individuals. Remember, words don't scare an individual who understands the true nature of reality. Stick around. I promise you, your eyes will open and your everyday will improve. I am Joan, your freaky philosopher, and I can't wait until our next session.